Hello and welcome to the Big Three podcast with Adarsh and Adam. In this podcast, me and Adam take you through all things cricket. Today we are going to discuss about the Australia versus India test, the third test which has happened yesterday and or today, yeah, today. So it turned out in a very anticlimactic manner as the rain won eventually, but there are a
Mm,
lot of things to take away, and I think most of all India got away with what should have been ideally an Australian victory.
mm. Yeah, I agree with that. Also, it's interesting to see that rain can still play a part in series in the sense that there is this feeling, and it's usually right that runs are scored so quickly and games move ahead so quickly that even if there is rain, there'll always be results. But sometimes there's just too much rain, and you get draws. I think I wonder, just looking at it, who feels better after the game? Do Australia feel better because they played better and they looked good, or do India feel better because they got away with one and they're 1-1, they've got two to play, and they've lived to fight another day? Who do you think is kind of feeling better after this match?
I think India is feeling better for the simple
Mm,
reason that I think they've not lost a test in Melbourne or Sydney for the last 10 years. So
wow.
India. So it's like before the series, people thought that India is going. If there are two tests which India can win, it's Melbourne and Sydney. So
Yeah.
Australia will be very disappointed. Like Cummins said after the match, he said that he'd have liked them going to one, and I think no team would have been so bold as to declare at 89 for 7 except Australia, maybe
Mm,
Stokes, but no one else,
mm,
because
yeah.
they knew that this game was, like I said in the last episode, this game might have been the decider between them. But nevertheless, now coming on to the specifics of the game,
Mm,
Steve Smith got like head is scoring runs.
yeah.
Nothing more needs to be said about Travis Head because he's just on a different planet altogether.
He got a wicket
Smith
as
got,
well.
yeah, Smith got back into scoring runs. So what did you make
Yeah.
of both of them?
Oh, I think we weren't surprised about Head. He's just on fire at the moment. He might be well be like you say, the best all format player, batter in the
After
world.
Bumrah, yeah.
And you what? Sorry, an all
After
rounder.
Bumrah,
Yeah, yeah. After
after Bumrah,
yeah, as a batter though. I mean,
yeah,
um, yeah, and I think Smith was a good sign for Australia because he'd gone through that fallow period. He'd had times where he'd spent as an opener. That was quite unselfish of him, really.
yeah,
And people would start to say that he was on the wane. And when they were doing that kind of a comparison between the Fab Four, it looked like he was near the bottom really of those four at the moment. But
yeah,
he's done well there, got that 100. Um, so that was a really good sign for him personally at 35, and for Australia and for Australia in this series, I think. So if he can continue that form at Melbourne and Sydney, then Australia will be okay. That though, it's okay having one or two players off form or playing out, like McSweeney or Kawaja. But if they had Sweeney, Kawaja, Labuschagne, and Smith all playing kind of badly or all out of form, that's not very good. You're basing everything on Head then, really, aren't you?
yeah.
So it's good for them that Smith stood up.
That the top three average is 14 for the last 2 years.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So on Smith, I think for the first 50 runs or somewhere around that, he tried a lot of things. He tried to bat like the Smith he was in 2017, 2018.
Mm,
He
yeah.
basically tried to imitate himself, and it looked very weird at that moment. But I think once he got that cover drive flowing, it felt like he was coming back. Not good signs for India, but I'm not really that worried, because I think this game was an exception rather than a start
Mm.
of another Steve Smith golden patch.
Oh, okay. But I can't imagine the pitches at Melbourne or Sydney would be kind of um, too different to this, will they? Or I suppose the
Sydney
conditions
will
might be
spin,
different.
but Melbourne
Yeah,
will be lively, I think.
yeah. He should still be okay for there, shouldn't he? Or
Yeah.
you don't think so?
Smith,
Mm,
I feel that Smith will have, like, he might score a 50 here and there, but I don't see him scoring another century in the last two games. Uh,
okay.
yeah, and in the bowling front for India, like Bumrah took six
Yeah,
wickets in the first innings, and Akashdeep, I think he toiled really hard, and he was the pick of the bowlers to me in the first session of that day. I think the
yeah.
second day, but he got nothing to show for it, and it's how the game goes. Unfortunately, I think Siraj as well. Like, people were saying he was not going to be able to sustain himself or sustain his
Mm,
form. He goes one game up, one game down, but he's been
mm.
really good. And I think in the top, he's the fourth highest wicket taker in this series with an average of 23.4. And that's,
Do you
I
think
think, that's
he's been adversely affected in any way by the kind of controversy with him in head and the kind of stuff that was written or said about him?
not in a way to demean Siraj, but I don't think he understands English a lot. So I don't think
Oh,
he
okay.
reads. I don't think he reads the press all that much. So I'm not sure it's affecting him, but I think it affects him in the way that he's had an altercation with Head and he's going to be more fired up during bowling. That might be it, but I'm not sure he reads the press. Uh,
And what
and
about Reddy? What do you make of Reddy's bowling? Because he always contributes with the bat.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
that's a very controversial thing here. People are
mm,
saying that Reddy shouldn't be playing because we're what we're doing basically is uh, cushioning the batters who aren't
mm,
scoring any runs, Virat, Rohit, and all that, and playing an extra batter who should be an all rounder but bowls very like for the lack of a better word, he bowls medium bowling,
mm.
which does not do anything. It's just a holding job, and honestly, India look like they had one bowler down, one bowler less in this game. They should have had one more bowler for either of Jadeja or Reddy.
Do you think it's a trend now? You know, like in the past, I don't know, 100 years ago, a wicketkeeper would just be a wicketkeeper and he wouldn't even have to bat.
Yeah.
But nowadays, every keeper has to bat. Do you think almost the same now that you have to have a number eight that can bat? In the past, you didn't have to. We like a bonus. But nowadays, you must have basically a bowling all rounder at number eight. Do you think that's the case now?
Yeah, because there are a lot of reasons why. Because I think, well, you have batting orders which aren't as technically sound anymore, result
Yeah,
pitches and all that. So people just want more cushioning at the back end. Earlier, you used to rely on your seven best batters, and then you don't
yeah,
need batting after that. But I think
yeah,
every single team has some form of batting extending till even nine, in my opinion. Like from what
yeah.
I have seen, like England would have at eight who they have. Gus Atkinson comes in at eight, right?
Wokes, Atkinson, and
Yeah,
Cast can all bat really.
they can all bat. So up to 10
Yeah,
they have batting, and then Bashir obviously. So every team does that, and yeah, I think it's just a reflection of the way the game's moving. They just want more cushioning rather than improving their techniques. And coming on to India's second innings, well, Yashasvi Jaiswal is failing again. Like he didn't do well in South Africa 2024 starting, and people were questioning that he really good enough for overseas surfaces. Is he just a flat track bully? But I wouldn't go as far as to call him that. What do
mm.
you make of his performances after that 100 in what were relatively flat conditions in Perth?
Oh, I got cut off there. Sorry about that. I didn't hear your last question.
Yeah, what do you make of his performances overseas after, uh, like, he's been called a flat track bully, but what do you make of? I wouldn't go as far as to call him that, but what did you make of his performances here after that relative where he got a 160 at Perth, where it was relatively flat?
Oh, I, I, I think it's okay. I think it's a bit harsh to say flat track bully, isn't it? Really.
Yeah, bit
Uh,
harsh.
um, uh, no, I think it's okay. Flat track bully's a bit much, and I think okay. Really, I wouldn't criticize too much.
Okay, so coming on to KL Rahul, I think he's been a revelation,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
people KL Rahul is the scapegoat for everyone. If anything happens to Indian cricket, KL Rahul has to take the blame, and he's he's come out and he scored an 84, and it's just the way things go for KL that he's always overshadowed by something or the other. Jadeja scores 77, and then you have that last wicket partnership, which makes everyone feel like they've conquered the world when all they've did is avoid the follow on. Like, come on, that was so embarrassing for me. You should not be celebrating like that after
I saw
avoiding
those
a
images. Yeah.
yeah, after avoiding a follow on.
Yeah.
It's like going to war, and okay, they're not going to take all of our territory. They're only going to take 80% of our territory. It would be like Germany celebrating after signing the Treaty of Versailles.
Yeah, I suppose it must be relief as well, though, mustn't it? Really, because at one stage it was looking a bit hairy.
Yeah, yes, but I think they shouldn't be setting such low benchmarks for themselves. Anyways, what did you make of like Virat's technique? It's come under a lot of scrutiny. Virat and Rohit both, they both are, and Gill as well. Both have
Mm.
been like India came out with a mindset to poke at everything. They were
Mm.
bowling in the fifth, sixth stump, and they were going for the cover drives every single ball. What did you make of Virat and Rohit specifically, and Gill obviously as well?
I think. I suppose and Gill's a bit different because maybe he's yet to kind of prove himself completely in the Test arena, whereas the
Yeah,
other two are kind of nearer the end of their career.
yeah,
I think I think with Sharma, he just looks like someone who's on his way out now.
yeah,
He's 37 now, and there's the kind of pressure of coming back as captain after the injured, won the first Test without him. He was under pressure already after New Zealand,
yeah,
and he looks very vulnerable. With Kohli, he got that 100 in the first Test, but since then has looked vulnerable as well.
yeah.
And I, is is that something that's kind of reversible, or is this just a trend and kind of there's no way out of it? I don't know, I suppose that's the question.
For Kohli,
Yeah,
I just don't think that he can come out of it unless he goes and practices on his fourth stump game on and on for like
mm,
10 hours, like Steve Smith does. Because
yeah,
he's had the same problem for 5 years now, and he's not
yeah,
like people say he's been going to the nets and practicing it, but it does not look like that because he gets the same ball and he does not have a back foot game. Let's be honest, everyone has covered this
mm,
enough. He
mm,
always resorts to the cover drive because he does not have that many scoring options with the back foot. I think you've
mm,
seen that he's stopped playing the pull shot as well. So one of
mm,
like he has only a few scoring options. If bowlers bowl at his pads, he can play the flick, obviously flick shot, and then
yeah,
he can play the cover drive. But he does not have a back foot game, and unless he develops that or stops prodding outside the off stump, starts leaving better, then
mm,
this might be his last series. And there are talks of that. I think there was a report that came out. Obviously, we're going to discuss the Ashwin retirement, but
yeah.
the report which came out after his retirement was that this was not the only retirement that was going to happen this series.
Oh, really? Is that from an official source or?
Yeah, he's a very accredited journalist in the Indian Marine.
Because usually when it's an accredited journalist, their sources are excellent, so you can kind of take what they say as true.
Yeah, so basically what he said was this was for Rohit, I think it's over. He's going to
Yeah,
captain for the last two games and then he's going to be gone. But for Virat, I think it's a test. If he does not perform in the last two games, does not score more than 150 or 150, then he's going to be gone. I
but do
I
you
think
think
that's
with Rohit he'll still continue at the ICC Champions Trophy?
Yeah, I think he's going to be there because the ODI format he did well, and the last game I think he played in ODIs was 2023, right? The World Cup, or has he
Yeah,
played after that? I don't think so. So yeah, he performed well then, so I wouldn't go as far as to drop him, but he could technically, like Ashwin, retire from all forms of the game altogether.
I suppose he could sign off from all forms of international cricket at the Champions Trophy. That'd be a nice way to go out, especially if he wins it.
Yeah, well, but the Champions Trophy does not have a schedule.
No, that's true.
It's 60 days to go. Anyways, Jadeja scored 77, and
Yeah,
again, like Jadeja averages what 40.2 overseas since 2017.
that's really good.
That's only 1 percentage point lower than Virat Kohli, and
Mm.
that's just phenomenal for me. And I can't understand why people like why the Indian team drops Jadeja because I think he gets into the Indian team on his batting alone.
It is fascinating, isn't it? How he's not always inked in. You would think he was just like a regular,
Yeah,
but when they go abroad, he's not always picked.
yeah.
Um, it's and also he gets a lot of wickets. It's not like he doesn't get any wickets either. So yeah, it's a
Yeah, and
strange one.
brilliant
And he's
fielder,
obviously a
obviously.
top fielder as well.
Yeah, yeah. So, what do you think? Why do you think they don't pick him, or what did you make of his innings?
Oh, that innings was crucial,
Yeah,
and that along with the rain probably saved India there. That 70 odd. Um,
yeah,
I think I don't know. I think sometimes people, not just India, but teams when they go abroad maybe overthink. And there's been many a time where they haven't picked Ashwin or haven't picked Jadeja, and you think, well, they really should have done that World Test Championship final a couple of years ago. I think they played the core, didn't they, at 8? And you think that they should have really
yeah,
played Ashwin. You think who would Australia rather face? Just because it's England and it doesn't like turn massively, a good spinner will still get wickets.
yeah,
And you know what I mean? I think sometimes when people go abroad, they kind of second guess and think, "Oh, this is in England, this is Australia. We can't play this spinner or whatever." But
yeah,
it's best to play your best players, really.
yeah. True. And what did you make of Akashdeep's six to Pat Cummins, which he played in
That was
abs like that was the most flamboyant moment of the entire series.
that was really good. I think so, who was it on? Was it Kohli was really excited on the bench,
Yeah, he
wasn't he?
started punching his fists and going and high-fiving everyone and all that.
And then I suppose he took that into his bowling in the second innings, didn't he, as well?
Yeah, he took that
Because he
into
was
his
quite
bowling and
successful.
picked 3 wickets, I think, 3 or 2
Yeah,
wickets. Yeah, 2 wickets. So yeah, a lot of energy from him, and honestly, I think he should have been picked earlier as well. Rana
mm,
was picked on pure gut feel, and
yeah,
I feel there was a bit of bias because Gambhir coached for KKR and Harshit Rana plays for KKR. So yeah, there might be some of that involved. But yeah, I think Akashdeep is a must in the Indian team, especially when
yeah. He
Mohammad
has to
Shami
play
is
in the
not.
last two tests, doesn't he?
Yeah, especially when Shami is not there, he has to be in the team, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Agreed.
Australia's second innings, not much to look there is there because they just came out and tried to have a slog and tried to have fun basically. So
Were you
uh,
surprised that they opened with McSweeney and Kawaja in those conditions when they were looking just to set a quick total, get a quick total? I would have thought they would have opened with Marsh and Head
yeah, I
because
thought
they
that as
declared
well.
on 89. They might as well have opened with those two.
Yeah, I thought that as well, but I think they brought Head in at number 4 then. So
Mm.
no, sorry, they brought Marsh in at number 4. So I think they wanted to lay a initial platform because they knew the new ball will do a bit with Bumrah bowling. So I think that might have been part of the reason why that happened.
Okay, I
Yeah.
think someone else might have opened with Head or Marsh there, and like another captain or coach.
Oh yeah, I don't see Jail doing that, right? Justin
No.
Langer wouldn't do that. Uh, yeah, and Bumrah picked 10 wickets again this game, so 9 wickets. Sorry, so he's basically Iron Man, and he's not got any Avenger beside him right now for
No.
for
As
India.
long as hopefully he stays fit for the rest of the series.
Yeah, and he averages what 19.1,
That's
and
amazing.
I'd go as far as to say that he's like I've said this before, but what do you make of him? Like, do you think if he continues on this trajectory, he's capable of being called the best fast bowler of all time, or capable of reaching there?
Oh yeah, he'd be in the conversation. Um, I mean, I've never seen Sydney Barnes. Just read about him. His record's amazing.
Yeah, but
But
he was everything, right? He was an off spinner, leg spinner, everything.
yeah, I'm trying. He could definitely be considered the best modern bowler of all time. I don't know about in Victorian times if there was anyone like Sydney Barnes or something or whatever, but maybe the last 70 or 80 years, he could easily be put in that picture if he continues that in that with that trajectory.
Yeah, with
Um,
Marshall, I think
yeah,
Malcolm Marshall
Marshall,
and him
Ambrose,
stand.
McGrath,
Yeah.
Stain.
So Ashwin's retired. So coming on to
Mm,
Ashwin for now, I think he's been such an integral part of India's success from 2012 to 2024. Like people do not realize how big a role he played in
mm,
Virat Kohli's tenureship, first of all, and Rohit Sharma right now, and before that, Dhoni. He's
yeah.
he's had an unparalleled he's had
Mm,
unparalleled success in India along with Jadeja, and he's got 6 Test centuries,
mm,
400 whatever 500 and something wickets, and
yeah,
whatever 30 to 45 first. Just an
yeah.
unbelievable record, and I'd place him as the third best spinner overall and the second greatest
Mm.
off spinner to have ever played the game.
What would you say he's the best apart from Warner Murali? Would you?
Yeah, that's what I
Yeah,
meant by saying third
yeah,
best spinner ever.
yeah, yeah. No, so you put him ahead of Kumble.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
most people in India agree. I was talking to my uncle the other day,
Mm.
and he said that Kumble was not really a spinner. He bowled straight balls, so they don't consider him a spinner.
Alex Stewart always used to say, the coach would always tell him, "Look, you've got to play Kumble like a medium pacer.
Yeah,
Don't play him like a spinner." So yeah, that proves your point there.
yeah. So what have you made of Ashwin's career? Because I think
Oh, it's a
he,
great.
yeah. Do you think
I mean, it's,
he?
it's a great career because, and also we're talking about his Test career here, but
Yeah,
he won the World Cup in 2011, didn't he?
yeah,
Um, and so he's a good all formats player. Also a big success in the IPL as well. So it, he's a player who is good in all formats, has an exceptional Test record. Um, can always get teams out of a hole. He's very streetwise, um, and is kind of level-headed as well. He's a top competitor, and yeah, he'll be really missed by them. I suppose he is 38 now, so you could see it coming. I think
yeah,
the only thing of interest for me was the fact that he did it in the middle of the series, not the
yeah.
end. I don't really understand that one really.
it was really surprising for me, and I think the reason might have been the fact that he'd been indicated or shown the door
Mm.
indirectly by the management. I think that
Ah,
might have been the reason why that happened. And honestly, I think he wanted to retire. I think Rohit admitted that he wanted to retire right after the Perth test, because he felt that if they're going to pick Washington Sundar over
mm,
him in an overseas test, then he does not have any place in the lineup and he does not want to warm
mm,
the benches for long enough. So I think it might have been as much an emotional decision as a cerebral one, even for Ashwin
ah.
standards.
Will he just go home now, or will he stay in the
Yeah,
camp?
he's going back home.
Uh,
Also, if you had to pick out your favorite moment of Ashwin, what would that be?
You know what? It's not a glamorous one, but I remember that when they were in a. This is going to sound like I'm having a joke, but there was this test against Bangladesh. I think it was I think it might
Yeah,
have been
yeah,
last year,
yeah, yeah.
and they were going to
2022,
lose to Bangladesh, and he put on a
Christmas
really good.
2022.
That's what it took. Yeah, he put on a really good inning. Uh, um,
Yeah,
so it's things like that that stick out for me. The fact
yeah,
that when you need him, he'll do it. The World Cup game in the T20 against Pakistan, he was there at the end with Kohli, and it's just
yeah,
things like that about him, whether it's the bat or ball, that in those big situations you can rely on him. Um,
yeah.
and I think that's one of his great strengths, as well as his like skill with the ball, that we all know about, and wickets. He's kind of switched on. He's streetwise, and you can trust him. I think.
Yeah, as you pointed out, those two occasions, and I think Iyer was batting then, and I was watching that game, and the calm which Ashwin had in
Mm,
both those
yeah.
games you mentioned, to leave that ball which Mohammad Nawaz bowled,
Yes.
and then give over the strike, or at least not be scared of the fact that it hits its pad, and then take over the game in the Bangladesh test. Both were
Yeah.
phenomenal, and I remember one more incident where the Champions Trophy final, where he was bowling the last ball and he had a deliberate delay before bowling to, who was it? James Treadwell, I think. Yeah,
Yeah.
and the
Yeah. I
ball
remember that.
spun past his bat and Dhoni left it. So that those are some of his most iconic moments, according to me.
And also, I mean, he always used to get Stokes out, didn't he?
Yeah, Stokes was his bunny. Really
Yeah.
surprising, and just overall, I think I'd rate him as, after Stokes and
Mm,
Jadeja, I think he also is in a shot for one of the best all rounders of this
mm,
era.
yeah. No, that's true. Um, I'm trying to think of other spinners that compare in the modern era. I suppose you can say, just bowling wise, Lyon is comparable
Yeah,
to him.
Lion stands head to head, or just a little less than Ashwin maybe.
Yeah, I think
I
he might have maybe just a few less wickets than Ashwin in
No, Lion
T20.
has more wickets, I think.
He's got more. Okay, yeah. So that's pretty good.
Yeah, I
They
think
were close, weren't they? 8 and 9, or 7 and 8, or something in the kind of overall list.
Yeah, I think Lion's record, like coming off Ashwin, I think Lion's record, just as a side note, is also very, very good, because he bowls most of his games in Australia, where the ball
Yeah.
doesn't do as much as in India. Anyways, Ashwin, I think, bowled in really, really flat tracks 2016, 2017, and did
Mm.
really well on those tracks bowling. So, a really good career, and India will definitely miss him. Washington Sundar is no match to him. I don't like the sight of Sundar bowling. So, it's going to
I
be.
suppose at least they got Kuldeep to come back.
Yeah, Kuldeep Yadav is there and Aksar is there. Will India will never have a depleted spin stocks, in the sense that
Yeah.
you'll never have a good spinner. But I don't think they're going to be able to match Ashwin's standards. So
No.
Washington's not going to be able to match that, in my opinion.
No. No. And I mean, just as another side note, we can talk about it another day. But 2024 is a year where a lot of top players are retired, and you can actually see probably in 2025 quite a number of players also retiring as well. Some
Yeah,
involved in this series, like
we
we
could do an
mentioned,
episode
Shot.
on that.
Yeah, we'll do one on that one. Yeah.
Yeah. So looking up to the next game, which is in
Mm,
Melbourne, the Boxing Day
mm,
test.
mm.
In my opinion, that game, obviously, it's the high billing game. It's the game of the Aussie summer. So I'd expect Australia to turn up really well. And
Yeah.
in my opinion, if India does well, they'll be able to draw the game, but
Mm.
they won't win in Melbourne, is my prediction.
I think I'm going to go for an Australia win. I just think they've got the momentum at the moment.
Okay. And it'll be a lively pitch. Like Melbourne used to be a dull S pitch,
Yeah.
where it used to take a bit of spin like Sydney and favor India, but now
Yeah.
they've put a lot of grass on it.
Yeah. I wonder why.
Yeah, maybe do that for England as well. Then I'll like the Ashes next year. Anyways, you also might. Anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. I might enjoy it more this time.
Okay, so coming on to New Zealand versus England.
Yeah.
Well, baseball shows its true colors after two tests, right? That's what people will say for the headlines. But no, they've been good enough for the
Yeah,
first two tests, and they've been amazing. Honestly, this game was bad, and there are a lot of
mm,
things to break down here. Uh,
yeah,
the first innings for New Zealand, everyone scored runs basically.
mm,
Santner has scored a 76. I didn't see the game much, so
mm.
that's something which they need to look at, right? The tail bowling at the tail, I think that constantly applies for them. They have not
Yeah,
been
it
able
does.
to make men's to that.
It's a good point. I think it's one of the weaknesses in this era from Bazball is the bowling at the tail. I know it preceded Bazball as well, but it's been really kind of noticeable. The India series at the start of the year in that fourth test, um, even the West Indies one which they won 3-0. I think the
Yeah,
second test, I think Shamar Joseph and someone else put on like a 50 or 60 partnership at the end in one test. Um, Sri Lanka's tail wagged against them. Pakistan's tail wagged against them crucially, and actually ended up winning the series because of it. And I think what happened was in the second morning, England started off bowling to Santner with every single person on the boundary,
yeah,
and so they couldn't get him out, as if he was like Bradman or Lara or Tendulkar or something.
yeah,
And then he'd managed to get a single with two balls left, and O'Rourke's got quite a decent defensive technique, and he'd just block. And it went on like that for an hour. And they only got a wicket after the drinks break, I think, when the rhythm was interrupted. But it's a constant. It's a what's I suppose what's frustrating is it's not really being looked at or kind of amended. It
yeah,
doesn't seem like they think it's a problem, even though it obviously is.
yeah,
Um, so I don't, those tactics were strange, and it was like because Stokes did it in the third test against Pakistan as well, but people said the reason was because he was distracted. I think there was a burglary in his home
yeah,
in Durham, but this time round he did the same thing without any distraction, and it
yeah,
must just be. I don't know if England are one of these sides that use a lot of stats or do a stats. I know Morgan is stats driven. I don't know how stats driven McCollum or Stokes are,
yeah,
but you know when they've got this very set idea how to bowl to certain players or to the tail, and sometimes you just have to bowl at the stumps.
yeah.
It's only Satner. If it was different, it wasn't like it was Williamson or Daryl Mitchell, but they still treated maybe Satner with too much respect there.
Yeah, not very bright with the with the data, are they? When their
Yeah.
captain comes and says the WTC table is confusing.
Oh yeah,
Anyways,
that's
yeah, it's it's karma for Sam Curran 2018, right?
yeah,
Yeah. Uh, so England's bowling, I think Stokes bowled himself for 24 overs, and I think that was completely unnecessary. Bowling
yeah,
23 overs a day and running yourself to the ground just to prove a point. Honestly, he was
yeah,
just trying to prove that he's good enough, and then everyone will say, "Oh, Ben Stokes is bowling himself so much. He's a lion-hearted player and
yeah,
all that." But you don't need to play for the heroics. You need to play. You have got series down the line, which are
yeah.
very important, and he does not need to put himself through such arduous again. Just pick a good spinner who can bowl better. I have not
Yeah,
liked
that was
Bashir.
the weird thing. So they picked Bashir, but didn't bowl him in the first innings.
Yeah,
And so the first thing was, I don't know, like 100 overs, say, and I don't think he bowled one over in that
yeah,
first
I didn't
innings.
bowl.
So, yeah, so they might as well have just picked another seamer and then
Yeah,
not having to have. If they could have picked, I don't know, Stone or someone or kept Wokes, and then Stokes wouldn't have had to bowl so many overs.
yeah.
Yeah.
And also, what did you make of Potts' bowling? Potts, Atkinson.
I
I
think
think they
Potts is
bowled well.
okay. I
Yeah,
think Potts is one of these guys who's a bit steady. I'm surprised that McCollum and Stokes pick him because he's not tall.
yeah.
Um, he's not like 7 foot and he doesn't bowl at 95 miles per
Maybe an
hour.
MMS of McCullum.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah,
I think he's decent. I think Stokes is a decent, solid squad player, but he wouldn't scare me if I was in the opposition. And he played well in the first test, but then when you look back, you say actually New Zealand got over par. So those 3 wickets were probably par or kind of over par
yeah,
for the way he bowled. So actually, it wasn't as good a kind of return to the team as I think people made out on day one. But he's decent. But I, I don't think I think, for instance, Worrell at Surrey is better, or Sam Cook at Essex is better
yeah.
myself. But I don't think they're going to start Potts unless there's injuries anyway.
Yeah, and I think the first day everyone thought that New Zealand are 50 or 100 below par because they were
Yeah,
looking on course to go on and set what 500 or 450, and they had a collapse, and then after that again the tail reinvigorated the innings.
yeah,
Anyways, to
definitely.
England's second innings, what did you make of someone who's in the English team just to carry around the drinks, I guess, and not bat anything like bat do anything. Zach Crawley and
Yeah, it's amazing. He's
Ollie Pope.
yeah. There's a problem with, I think, Crawley and Pope, and I think Pope to a lesser extent, because he does get hundreds now and then, but I
Yeah,
think both of them have been kind of overindulged by the management. Bashir could be go along the same path as well. He's only
yeah,
just come in, but the management have kind of decided that these are their players they're going to back no matter what. And it's like the opposite of the kind of Steve Waugh, Alan Border approach, or what Fletcher or Flower would do, where you have to really earn your place in the side. And you to get a cap, you have to earn that cap, and you have to keep that cap. This is more like we back you, and you can basically do what you want. So Crawley averages 30 now as an opener after 53 tests,
yeah,
and has only scored 400. I don't think there's any other country in the top 8 of Test cricket that would ever do that. I just don't think. And the logic is even weirder. Key says we're doing this so that because we think he'll do well in Australia in 2025, at the end of 2025, 2026. So he's played all these tests and failed in all these tests on the hope that he'll be okay on those Australian wickets. It's really bizarre. I don't think it's ever been done by anyone else before. And I don't think it's fair at all to people who have been dropped, and they could be rightly dropped, like
yeah,
Lees or Burns or Sibley or whatever. They were all judged on their runs, and rightly so. He must be judged on his runs too. Um,
yeah,
and I suppose with Pope to a lesser extent, he got out in peculiar ways twice in this test. And he's another one where he's kind of got everything very easy. He was even given the captaincy when Stokes was injured, when he hadn't really captained Surrey. So he wasn't even a natural captain, and they gave it to him just because they wanted to kind of develop him. And it's not the approach I would take. I like the players to actually earn their place in the side, to be kind of regulars, to be averaging 40, and then you go from there when you kind of make them captain or whatever. They've taken the other approach, and I think they've kind of overindulged these players.
yeah. Definitely, they both of like Crawley, Pope, and Bashi, as you've mentioned, all look like they've been just handed a free pass into the team, and
Yeah,
they're just
I mean,
playing like
it's just
that.
amazing.
Yeah,
With Bashir, he's played what 16 tests this year, and he must be 21, and it's
most in helpful
it's
conditions. Also,
yeah, yeah, exactly. Five in he played 4 of the India ones, didn't he?
yeah,
3 in Pakistan at 7. He also played 3 against the worst ever West Indies batting lineup in their history. So
yeah,
there's seven tests there in ideal conditions. Against Sri Lanka, Sri Lanka's a good player as been. And New Zealand, he didn't really bowl
yeah,
that much, and when he did bowl, he was very expensive. And it's just like they've almost used test matches. I mean, they're the side that goes on about the integrity of Test cricket.
yeah.
Yet they use a lot of Test games as this
As
like
practice games.
these are practice games, yeah. And these are kind of overs that he could be getting in the Lions or something.
Yeah,
And they're using games like against proper sides like New Zealand or Sri Lanka as a practice. You think that they deserve a bit more kind of respect than that. These are these
exactly.
series in their own right.
Yeah,
And
and
I
and
think, yeah, sorry.
yeah, Stokes went on to the press conference and said that I think on introspection we have not been giving as much respect to other teams as I should have, and I felt like, oh, finally I've realized what you have been doing for so many months, and people have been pointing that out.
Do you think in a year's time he'll say, you know what, we really should have paid attention to the World Test Championship? I realise that now.
Yeah, and then he'll say, you know what, the overrate rule was not as bad as I originally
Yeah,
thought. I
yeah,
should have followed it. Anyways, good on you, Ben. Just be the person you were in 2019. Bring back
yeah,
that Ben Stokes, and he will do just fine, even with this aging body.
yeah,
Williamson scored 156,
yeah,
and again, you have the Fab Four stats popping up, right?
mm, yeah, yeah.
He's
Every time.
really good innings and scored at a strike rate of 76, so
Yeah,
at a good rate as well.
yeah. He's still got it. Um, is he 35 in June? So I think he's the second youngest of the four, isn't he?
Yeah,
And
Root's
Root's the
youngest, and
youngest.
then Williamson, Smith, and
I think
Kohli.
Kohli's the oldest, isn't he?
Yeah,
Yeah. I think yeah, Williamson did well, and I don't know. I think Satner's inclusion helped them because if England play in a one-day manner, then play a good one-day bowler against him in
yeah,
Santner, sorry. So in a way that worked, and also obviously he could bat. And
yeah.
O'Rourke bowled well with reward this time. I mean, he could have easily got more wickets in the first
Henry
test.
bowled well.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, and
But
Will Young's inclusion, like I was calling for it in the last games as well. That Devon Conway does not, like, he has to be dropped at one
yeah,
point, and Will Young got in and he made best use of his chances. At least scored a 60, and in the first innings he scored what? He scored 42. So yeah,
yeah.
102 runs in the game, and
Isn't
that
it
was a
funny?
good.
He's never got a Test century before.
Who?
Young's never got a Test century before.
Oh, let me just check. Yeah,
It's
he's never
funny.
got a Test century.
It's
89 is
funny
his
that
highest.
you had in that game him. Phillips has never got a Test century. Bethel never got a century in his life.
Yeah,
So
Bethel
it's
is
funny, but in
very
Tests you've
new.
got it's funny, isn't it? You've got Test top seven batters with no Test hundred in their Test career or their career at large.
Can you imagine that in 1970s Jeffrey Boycott plays Alan
No,
Border or something like that?
no, no, not at all. No,
They'd
not at
have
all.
50 first class centuries before making it into the teams, right?
Yeah,
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 and
it's really funny.
Ravindra scored 44. Mitchell, like Daryl Mitchell, has played well in both the innings,
Yeah,
and Santner did well, like you mentioned earlier, with in the bowling front for New Zealand in both the innings.
mm,
Henry did well, Rourke did well, and obviously, like coming on to Saudi now,
mm,
uh, he he had what 95 sixes, right? And he hit
yeah,
three sixes in the first innings, and
yeah,
then he got out, and then he couldn't finish, get the two more
yeah. He just
sixes to
needed
finish
two
that.
more. He said he never felt like he'd been under more pressure in his life.
And he was smacking them really well. I was on a
Yeah,
train and I was seeing him hit them. And yeah, seriously, I think if I were England, I'd just say, have a hit, mate.
yeah,
Get
because the
those two.
game was finished by then anyway, wasn't it?
Yeah. Just like reflecting on his career, I think he's retired from all forms of the game, right? International game.
Yeah, I think so. I think he's still going to play some
Yeah. So
matches.
he's a World Test champion. He's
Yeah,
won series. He's whitewashed India in India. He's won in England. He's won in South Africa, I think, or has he not won in South
he's
Africa?
beaten them at home, but I don't know if I don't think he's won there, but he's beaten them in New Zealand.
Yeah, beaten Pakistan at home, Bangladesh.
Yeah,
Like he's had a illustrious career in Test cricket, and
I
he's
think he might have lost two 50 over World Cup finals and one
yeah,
T20 World Cup final as well. So
yeah,
runner up in three finals.
and used to be a really good ODI white ball bowler till 2019, 2018,
Yeah,
along with Bolt. So yeah, I think a really good player there and a really good entertainer with the bat.
yeah, definitely. I think he had a stand named after him, but I don't know if that was permanent or just temporary for that match.
Yeah, who's the Prime Minister? Christopher Luxon, right, or something like that. Maybe we need to contact him to make a
Yeah, yeah.
stand for him.
Get him on the pod.
Yeah, get him on the pod.
Him and
For
Ian Smith.
England's second innings, people like I had a feeling that England were going to chase that. I don't know why, but when I saw them 2 for 18, I just thought to myself, this will make for baseball headlines.
Yeah,
They chased 640, whatever was
if
set for
they'd done
them.
that,
Yeah,
that would have been
that won't
amazing.
happen.
No, I
But
think
yeah,
I think they
go on.
might have fancied chasing like 450 or something, but not when it gets to 650.
Yeah, Ben Duckett's shot was really awful, right? In the second innings, when you have got that many runs to chase, and then he goes out and tries to smack it over covers for absolutely no reason, that must have infuriated you.
Yeah, what's really sad about that is there was only 8 overs left,
Yeah,
so the next day was quite a good day to bat, as you saw with Bethel and Root.
yeah,
So couldn't he have just curbed his kind of instincts just for a bit, just for like half an hour? It's a bit weird because it wasn't like uh, I don't know, like a hook shot that he mistimed or a pull shot. He just tried to slug him like he was a spinner or something.
yeah.
Uh,
Nothing to say
yeah,
about Duckett, right? He's just following the footsteps of Jaswal in a
yeah,
land very, very south, or very not very, very south, very, very north from New Zealand. And
yeah,
with Bethel, yeah, he's been doing really well, and he is one of the positives for this series for England
definitely.
among the many. And yeah, I think he's going to be a really good player for them, and they have to groom him. They have to play him over Bashir, and in my
Yeah,
opinion, play him, play Root, and play all the rest of the bowlers as seamers.
yeah,
That's the
I
way
think
I'd
so.
go.
I do the same. I hope they're thinking that way. Otherwise, it's. I just think there's a problem if England go into the India or Australia series with Crawley, Pope, Bashir, and kind of half-fit Stokes.
Yeah.
They're going to lose. They can't have all four of them. That's like having not passengers. I don't think Stokes and Pope are passengers per se, but they're not fully firing. And I think probably Crawley and Bashir are actually passengers. So you've got two passengers and two, I don't know, half passengers if you want to call it that. And you can't be beating India and Australia with those four. You should only play half of them, I think.
Yeah, both like I think all the big three have passengers in their team right now,
Yeah,
right?
but you just shouldn't have four though.
Yeah, exactly. Also, I forgot to mention a topic in the Australia versus India game. Like, just to come back, I'll come back
Mm,
to New Zealand, England to finish
yeah,
it off. But I think Khawaja, like we mentioned, he. Do you think it's time for him also to call off his
yeah.
career because he's not been
I think it
performing
is.
it?
He's 38 now,
Yeah,
and I think to be fair to the Australian selectors, because Warner had gone, and they struggled to replace Warner. Even they had to get a middle order batter and make him open
yeah,
in McSweeney. They thought, well, the least of our priorities is getting rid of Kawaja as well. If they'd
yeah.
had, two kind of opening batters knocking at the door, they probably would have replaced him. But he probably should go after this series. Maybe if they make the World Test Championship final, he can sign off at Lords or something. But it shouldn't be much longer, really.
I wouldn't take him to the World Test Championship final
Oh,
because
you think he should
honestly,
just
he's
go
had one
this?
medal.
This time?
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's had one medal, and they have Sam Constas waiting in the wings, and he's looking like
Oh
a
yeah.
real good player. So no point playing him anymore. He looks jaded, and he's had a really good career, but needs
Hmm.
to call off.
Yeah, and
Same
also
with
38 is quite old for a sportsman. It's not like he's 33 or something.
yeah,
38, it's old.
yeah,
You can't blame him.
yeah, and he needs to go. And same with McSween, he does not look like a test player to me, even though he had that whatever he scored 64 right in one of the innings, but
Yeah, yeah,
does not look the part in test cricket.
no. And
So coming
they
on
might
to
be exposed against that South African attack if it's them they play in the final, if they make it.
what? I didn't get you.
No, if it is an Australia South Africa final, those two openers will be exposed by the South African pace attack.
Yeah, definitely. If England serves out, if Lord serves out
Yeah,
a green wicket, then they're both going to be vulnerable, real vulnerable. And then you have
yeah,
Labuschagne as well, who's not in good form.
yeah.
Smith,
That's another
who's
problem.
edgy. Then the entire Australian batting lineup is being carried by one man, and that's
Mm.
Travis Head, and that's not a good place, right, for a
No,
team. Yeah. So yeah, ending on England versus New Zealand. What are your final thoughts, and what is the next Test series? I think it's India, right, or is it Zimbabwe?
it's Zimbabwe for a test, and then India for 5 tests. So
Yeah,
Zimbabwe in May, and then India squeezed into June and July, so they can accommodate the 100 for the whole of August. So
yeah.
many people listening here would have remembered Indian tours of England before, and they're like July, August, September. This is just June and July,
Wow,
all
I
squeezed
didn't know
in.
that. I didn't
Yeah,
actually pay heed to the scheduling as much. So
it's
looking
all squeezed
forward,
in.
yeah, looking forward. What do you want different from this team, like from what you've mentioned, and what are the positives from this year from England English cricket for you?
I think the positives from this tour, or maybe this year, are the emergence of quite a good number of pace bowlers. I
Yeah,
think that's fine. The pace bowlers they had on this tour, plus they've got Archer and Wood to combat, possibly people like Worrell as well. I'd argue Cook, but I don't think they like him. Um, Positive also Bethel. The negatives, I would say, Bashir hasn't developed in the way they wanted him to, and he would be a liability against India or Australia. Now, obviously, in the future, he can be good. They can't have Crawley open against India or Australia. Pope is a 50-50 at best. He's not consistent enough, and Stokes is kind of not fully fit and not the player he was.
yeah,
And even though he's a decent captain on the field anyway, tactics wise, I don't think he's good enough to be a specialist captain. So he does need to get some runs if he's not going to bowl at all. He
yeah,
can't just be in the side, not bowl, and get like a 20 from 15 balls at
yeah,
7 against India or Australia. That will not be good enough for us to win.
yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. I like I've mentioned earlier, he maybe warranted a place in the side earlier because he had that to show for, but
Hmm.
you have an expiry date after
Yeah,
not performing for a extended period of time. Anyways, I think that we've covered most of what happened in the recent series, and we'll see you again next week on some hot topics, players who have retired covering their careers. Till then, we'll see you again.
yeah.
Bye.
See ya.